wow. Each volume, it just gets better and better. So let's review Superman Earth 1, Volume 3. Gosh, I forgot how good this one was. Welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin, and this is my spoiler talk comic book review for Superman Earth 1, Volume 3. This was only my second time reading it. I guess it had been a while. I knew it was fantastic. I just forgot how great it is. And reading it the second time, I think this has possibly just become my favorite Superman story put to the page. One of the things that I really like about this Earth 1 series, and I talked about this in the last video going over Volume 2, but I'm just going to say it again because it's definitely worth repeating. Earth 1 seems to have this philosophy of saying if we're just going to reboot something, we might as well do something different with it. We might as well do something unique with it. And they have such unique takes on the Luthors, on our villain here, Zod. They have unique takes between Lois and Clark. I mean, they just do such unique spins on the characters that I'm reading something that all at once is familiar. It's a character that I know and love, but with such a unique spin, it doesn't bother me that this is basically still in the origin story phase, that this is still the beginning of his career, because I'm getting enough new stuff that I haven't gotten before that I'm really tremendously enjoying this. So diving into this, one of the things that's interesting, Lois and Clark. So as I talked about in the last volume, it's not like Lois and Clark have this will they, won't they relationship. Clark and Lois barely have a relationship. Lois knows Superman, but there's like nothing big or huge or strong there. But what's really interesting about this one, so getting the boring part out of the way, not that it's boring, because it's really not, but Clark confronts Lois on what happened in Volume 2, where Lois investigated him. So she was just honest and straightforward, and apologized, and he's like, okay, whatever, and so they kind of begin a friendship. So that kind of doesn't, like, take any wild turns here or there, at least not in this volume. So, like, he knows he was investigated by her, she knows he knows, and they've been able to just kind of move on because, the way Lois explained it to him, it made sense, so they were both able to just let it go and move on. But what's interesting is what Lois does. So in Volume 2, Superman goes back to the island of Barada at the very end, and it's like this own independent nation island run by this evil dictator who, just rules with a rod of iron, rules with his guns, oppresses his people. So Superman, at the end of the comic, comes back and topples the guy's regime. I mean, he stirs up the people, so I guess technically it's the people, but since Superman can't get hurt, he's really the one that shows up and does whatever to incite the people, and they go and they overthrow this guy. And they actually do establish a good and better government. So it's not like it's a bad thing. The country's not in a bad place. It's a good thing. But it's the fact that a super powerful alien being crossed over to another border and toppled a government that was established that has the world panicked. So Lois actually creates this Superman signal. Yeah, it is what it sounds like. It is the bat signal, but instead of the bat, it's this. It's the Superman S, and I thought that was pretty hysterical. Just a funny little Easter egg, funny little callback in there, and I thought that was great. But it gets Superman's attention, and this is where Lois and Superman, they don't strike up a will they, won't they thing. They actually just strike up a genuine friendship, where Lois is like, hey, dude, morally, I have no problem with what you did. That leader was horrible. He was horrible to his people. But the fact that you went and toppled a government, you have freaked out the earth, my friend. And you've got to learn boundaries. You've got to figure that out. Yeah, you need to be doing the right thing, but you got to figure out where the line is because you have the entire world on edge. And really, you go into the UN Security Council, Lois has an uncle there, Ambassador Lane, and really the world is freaked out that he went to this island nation and just toppled a government. So this is like the whole topic of conversation now. They've almost forgotten about Parasite in this battle in Metropolis. They're on the fact of, oh my gosh, look what this guy did and look at what this guy can do. Which is a very interesting plot, and it becomes a very interesting focal point in this story. But I liked what they established between Superman and Lois. I like that it's not a melodramatic soap opera CW style feeling. Will they, won't they? Oh my gosh. Not a love triangle between, Lois and Lisa, like there was that love triangle in Smallville between Lois and Lana. They didn't even do that. They're establishing a good, solid friendship here. So speaking of Clark and Lisa, they're not dating, but Clark Clark has been guarded all his life, so he doesn't know how he feels towards her romantically because he's guarded himself against that all his life. But Lisa's crushing on this guy. And so they do a really interesting relationship with that. And I think what's the most interesting thing is Lisa has told Clark a secret about herself she has told nobody, that she would prostitute on the side to help pay her bills. And that's something she's ashamed of. It's something she kept a secret. But she told Clark. She felt comfortable enough with Clark to open up because Clark was a good guy. He didn't turn his back on her when she said that. He didn't look down on her because she said that. In fact, he was still her friend. And so Clark makes her feel safe. Clark makes her want to be a better person. It makes her want to go up to that next level. And then she, left something in Clark's apartment. The landlord lets her in, and she gets in there and finds his Superman suit and figures out he's Superman. So what's really cool is the parallel that they do. That she finds out a deep secret about Clark, but she doesn't want to just, freak out Clark. Like, I know your secret. I know you're Superman. And so, they don't do anything melodramatic or soap opera-y about it. And that's what I respect about it. They really do this thing where she's a friend. So she's not going to go blab to Clark that she knows, but she's going to drop the hints. And Clark, being a super genius, it takes him a little bit, but he figures out that she knows. But he can't do anything about it because Zod shows up and he's got to go handle that whole deal. But yeah, but it's just an interesting thing. And it's an interesting thing what they do with her at the end of the story, knowing his secret. And so they give everything that they do has such a strong purpose. It is not filled with melodrama, soap opera drama. It's not filled with that. Everything has a really specific purpose and furthers the story in a really positive way. And so I really like and respect how they handle that. And I like the parallel in Lisa and Clark's relationship. And so now they have secrets that they know about each other. Clark now has a friend that this is the most intimate he's ever been with somebody. By intimate, I just mean that friendship intimate, where she knows something about him nobody else does. He knows something about her nobody else does. It's interesting what they do with it because Clark has never had a friend like this. And so he's confused as to whether he feels romantic about it or not. Either way, though, he's not ready to turn his back on even a friendly love. So it's a very cool thing that they do with it. But where this story gets even cooler and 10 times more interesting, Zod. They bring in Zod. But what is so cool about Zod in this, number one, is the history and mythology they put behind Zod. They took a risk in this. They took a risk. When you watch Man of Steel, Zod is a military leader. You could tell there was a friendship between him and Jor-El. It's gone now. Zod, they do that. And that's like the main storyline you hear about Zod. He and Jor-El were friends. Zod got power crazy, turned his back on Jor-El. This is a little different. Kind of the same, but different. Because in this story, he's not just Zod. He's Zod-El. Dun, dun. He is Superman's uncle. He is Jor-El's brother. This isn't just some dude who went crazy on Krypton. Zod is family. And so I thought that was such an awesome twist that they did on it. And I've heard it before in different Superman stories where the House of El was a royal line, where they kind of had a kingly royal line on Krypton. What they did in this story that was interesting, the House of El abandoned that, and founded the Council of Science. And it was this council instead of this monarch dictatorship that ruled. And so it was kind of interesting. I mean, they didn't get into too much about that, but I felt like when I was reading through the pages, I picked up enough on that, Jor-El doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to step in that direction. Zod wants his family to be kings again. Zod wants to rule because he's power hungry. So they kept that part to his character. They kept that part of his mythology. But I think what they do is they make it cut deeper because he's not just turning his back on a friend in Jor-El, he's turning his back on a brother in Jor-El. And then Zod begins a civil war on Krypton, and it's a civil war because I guess the planet's united, and they're united in fighting their planetary neighbor where Tyrell brings his people to destroy Superman in Volume 1. So that's kind of where things are. And so Zod abandons Krypton, abandons his family, and abandons his brother. He gets the one other ship that exists that has warp drive, and he warps over to the neighboring planet, and Krypton doesn't use it because I guess their religion forbids them to go through the stars and things like that. And Jor-El's like, you know what, let's just let the Council of Science deal with this. Let's learn and study and blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, gosh, dang it, let me rule and let me use warp drive in the stars. So he flies over to the next planet, and he says to Tyrell and his people, this is the big reveal. This is what we were building to since Volume 1. that Zod betrayed his family, Zod betrayed his people. Zod said, I will give you warp drive. I will give you starships so you can explore the universe. I will give you the means to destroy your enemies utterly. I will give it all to you if you promise you will destroy them utterly, that you will not let one Kryptonian escape. Period. Zod is the death of Krypton. Zod started the whole thing that happened in Volume 1 with Tyrell. So that was a really cool thing that they've been building towards. We get this moment in here where Superman gets this revelation and it rips him to shreds. It is a betrayal because when Zod showed up to the Earth, Zod played all nice. A bridge was collapsing and Superman was trying to save everybody, but he couldn't. And Zod shows up and helps Superman save people. And so they have this bonding moment on top of the fact it's another Kryptonian. Then he finds out, this is my Kryptonian uncle? I mean, I don't trust you yet. I just met you, so I need to go fact check everything you're telling me. But oh my gosh, this is incredible. I'm not alone anymore. And just as Zod meets Superman face to face and establishes a friendship and a bond, as soon as Superman flies off to talk to the ship and try to fact check, Zod flies over to the United Nations and he goes, hey, when I was flying in here, I watched all your news and I studied your culture and all that stuff. You guys are terrified of Kal-El here. Well, let me tell you a little something about Kal-El. His house was the royal family, and they are responsible for the death of Krypton. And you have every reason to be afraid of a guy who can topple governments. But you know what? I'll take care of him for you. If you'll just do this one thing for me. Stay out of it. All of you turn your back on him and let him stand alone. Let this be between him and me, and I'll take him out for you. And they agree to it! They are so afraid of Superman. They're so afraid of the fact that a second Kryptonian showed up in fear. They agree to this. They're like, all right, that's convenient. Take care of this problem. Oh, good. That worked itself out. You know what, though? The dumbness of humanity is a real thing, and I could almost, see that happening. I don't even find that an unrealistic plot point. And so Superman and Zod start a fight. Superman barely escapes, gets to his ship, and then he says, ship, you help me defeat two other foes here. Help me take out Zod. And here's the ship's advice. Because you have the same powers, but he's a soldier and he's trained to kill, and, you were raised on a farm. So your two choices are fight him and die, or run and live. So pick between those two. So Superman is alone, his ship can't help him. Really quick in the fight, he sees a soldier and he asks for help, and the guy goes, sorry dude, on orders, we have to look the other way. He finds out real quick the entire world has betrayed him. The one and only other Kryptonian betrayed him, his ship can't do anything. He is standing alone in a fight against Zod. On top of this, we got to talk about the Luthors. The twist on the Luthors is so good in this story. And what's so good about it is Alexa Luthor, the wife of Lex, she wants the weapons that will destroy Superman. And Lex analyzed the red beam that crushed Superman in the, first book, and he analyzed it. He figured out that it is the red sun of the radiation of a red sun, an old star that weakens Superman. So he begins to develop weapons to, combat it. But he says to his wife, I can't do this. This guy hasn't established that he's a bad person. He's really only done anything to help. I feel horrible. I can't be a part of this. And Alex is like, no, it's a deterrent. It's just to defend ourselves in case he should turn. And so Alexa, who feels like this other person, Colonel Lee, just wipe out Superman, is trying to nicely move her husband in the direction of creating these weapons. But we always see Lex Luthor as Superman's enemy. It's interesting to see Lex Luthor defending Superman and defending his right to live. So we come to it. The fight between Superman and Zod. It's happening in Metropolis. Superman wants to take Zod away. Zod's like, no, this is part of the fun for me. We're going nowhere. Lex Luthor has his weapon, and Alexa says, look, this fight's going to cost lots of lives. Let's just use this and take care of it. And Lex actually starts to sound like Superman. He starts to sound like Batman. He's like, there's got to be another way. There's got to be another way. But Alexa convinces him there is no other way. They go turn on the Superman signal on the roof that Lois created. Superman thinks Lois is in trouble. He flies over there really fast. and Lex Luthor shoots him with the red sun ray, and he loses his powers. So now we have an interesting dynamic. We have Superman with no powers fighting Zod with all the powers of a Kryptonian. And Zod just laughs. He's like, okay, this is going to be fun, and slowly torches Superman. So the dynamic there is incredibly interesting. Slowly Superman's recharging, but not fast enough. But Lex Luthor is so overcome with guilt. Alex is talking to Colonel Lee, and Alex is talking about how, you know, it's not pretty, but this is what has to be done. And Lex, you always do the right thing in the end. And, you know, she meant one thing, but Lex took it another way, grabbed the gun, and ran. And before all of that goes down, I mean, you have Lisa, who sees Superman in trouble. So she, who has no powers, runs into the streets, finds a huge, like, truck, gets in this truck, slams the gas, and runs over Zod, which does him no problem, but he's caught off guard, so, you know, he kind of gets toppled over, but whatever. And this hurts Lisa a lot. I mean, come on. She hit a Kryptonian, and then he picks up the car and throws it with her in it. But this mortal did what she could to help Superman, where armies would not help him, where people that had the power to help him would not help him. And then, on top of this, Lex Luthor comes in at the 11th hour, shoots Zod with the red ray gun, and Zod loses his powers. Now we have an even match going on here. Superman and Zod, both powerless, fighting on the level of humans. I mean, it's like a fist fight. It's so incredible. And then, you know, Zod is mad at Luthor, so he stabs him through with this big thing, I don't know, stabs him through, and Alexa shows up. She's ticked. So Superman, who doesn't kill, who hasn't brought himself to that yet, Alexa just shoots Zod in the chest, and Zod is gone. So it's Alexa Luthor, but her husband Lex is like on the ground bleeding out. She yells at Superman, don't touch him, don't touch us, don't come near us. Shoots him, but, you know, Superman, his power is coming back, so the bullets don't hurt him. And Superman takes that red ray gun, man, and he's out of there. But, I mean, to me, all of that was so interesting. And I can't tell if Luthor died in the end. I don't think he's dead. I think he's, like, cryogenically frozen. Alexa had him frozen. And they can't replicate the weapons that Lex created because it was from Lex Genius. Alexa, who is a genius, doesn't have the tech genius that Lex had to build that, so she doesn't have the ability to rebuild the weapons. But she becomes the sworn enemy of Superman. And she says to Colonel Lee, call me Lex Luthor. And I thought, what an awesome twist. The wife of Lex Luthor, Alexa Luthor, she, at this point, becomes the Lex Luthor, the arch nemesis of Superman. And that is such a fascinating twist. And she was already not liking him before, but now that her husband is, like, gone, she's 10 times more angry at him. And I thought, this is such an interesting twist. And so there were so many fascinating twists in this. I just give this an A+. I love the risks that they took. I love the background that they gave Zod, making Zod family. So it makes the wound cut deeper, and it adds a whole nother interesting dynamic and a different type of rage there. You know, the fact that we got what we were building towards from Volume 1 here in Volume 3, and they began building towards something new. Zod came with a ship full of kryptonite wearing a suit so that he couldn't feel the radiation, and he was going to poison Superman with the kryptonite. Alexa steals the kryptonite at the end of the comic. We don't know why. So there we go. We closed an entire setup and started a brand new setup. And I love that. I don't know what's going to happen with this kryptonite, but Alexa has the only stash of kryptonite that exists on the entire planet. So I think that is so fascinating, and I can't wait to see where we build with Lex having all the kryptonite. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing where we go, and I hope that we get a Volume 4 here really, really soon. So I'm super excited. I can't wait to dive into Batman with you guys, the Earth 1 series there. I can't wait to read the Wonder Woman Earth 1 for the first time, and then we get a Green Lantern Earth 1 in March. I love this series, and there's going to be so much to talk about. So hit the subscribe button. That way you're notified, and hit the bell next to the subscribe button. That way you're notified the moment I drop all of these videos. In the comments, let me know what you think of this Earth 1 series, or what's your favorite graphic novel. Let's have an awesome conversation about Superman, DC, Marvel, graphic novels, whatever you want to talk about. Let's talk about it in the comments below. Hit the subscribe button. Thanks for checking out this video. I'm Durbin.